Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the California-Nevada chat for Friday, July 12th. We hope everyone has had a great week and had a great 4th of July holiday. My name is Nikki Gatch, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Southern California PGA. On behalf of our President, Eric Lohman, as well as our colleagues from the Northern California PGA section, Interim Executive Director Michael Merritt and President Eric Lippert, we welcome you. We once again have some great guests lined up for you today. We have two award-winning PGA professionals from the Southern Cal and Northern California PGA sections. We also have Piers Ward and Andy Proudman of Me and My Golf, and we'll be discussing the upcoming California Teaching and Coaching Summit with these gentlemen. Also joining us, as always, to give us our legislative updates is Public Affairs Consultant for the Southern California Golf Association, Mr. Craig Kessler. Before we get started, I'll turn it over to our Northern California colleagues, Interim Executive Director Michael Merritt. Michael, have any opening comments for us this morning? Welcome.
Thank you, Nikki. On behalf of President Eric Lippert and myself and everyone here in Northern California, really excited to hear from Piers and Andy and our brand new member in Northern California. Thanks for trading him up here, Sean Cox, and getting to hear from Randy Chang, and as always, Craig Kessler. So Nikki, take it away.
Thanks, Michael. I see we're joined by Southern California President Eric Lohman. Eric, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, everybody. I just want the record to show that I'm very disappointed that Mr. Lippert did not make this call this morning, that I keep a running tab at home, and I don't know if this places me in front of him or behind him, but just know that today will be my day and not his day, as we celebrate all things California and Nevada, but at least California is represented with one Eric today. But I'm excited to hear from Sean and Randy and Piers and Andy and everybody in regards to the California Coaching and Teaching Summit. I messed that name up 9 times out of 10, and I probably did right there and then, but I have been to the event. It's a great event. Hopefully we get some people to come watch it from Northern California and outside of our own section in Southern California, but very excited to be at the Grand Del Mar. I know Sean spent, 20 years there building that place up. It's a really nice facility. The people there have a very nice culture, very welcoming. It's very high end as well. And it's going to be just a nice few days for all of us to be together, learn from the greatest teachers that we have, and be with our peers and really keep pushing the game of golf forward, but in a way that's fun and exciting and a lot of camaraderie. So I'm just very excited. And then anytime you get a chance to spend time with Craig Kessler, a retired consultant, emeritus, whatever title he wants to carry forward, we just know he's the man. So I look forward to hearing what he has to say. And I hope he actually talks for at least 4 or 5 minutes about the debate and about what he knows about what's going on Capitol Hill with the presidency, because I think that's what's even more exciting than some of the other things we get to talk about. But I don't know if he'll dive into that. He might not. But if he did, just know that I'd probably stay on longer than I normally do, which is about the next 30 seconds. But you all have a great day. We'll talk soon. I just appreciate being able to support everybody. And like I said, I'm super excited to be at the Grand with those that are going to make it, because that's going to be a neat event. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. Not sure if we'll get into presidential discussions, but we'll see where the day takes us. All right, so let's introduce our first couple of guests. I'm going to start with Mr. Sean Cox. Sean is an award-winning PGA professional, highlighted by being recognized as the Golf Professional of the Year for our San Diego chapter in 2013, and then again as our Southern California section Golf Professional of the Year in 2018. Sean has always been dedicated to serving the PGA and his fellow professionals, and he served on multiple committees and boards during his time here in Southern Cal. We certainly miss him, but we know he's in good hands up north. He recently moved up north and is serving as the director of golf at Sharon Heights Country Club in Menlo Park. I know they just reopened the course, so congrats again, Sean, on that. A couple fun facts about Sean. He was a member of the 1991 University of Washington National and Rose Bowl Championship football team. And Sean is part of the Husky Hall of Fame. Also, Sean has shot in the 60s, both right and left-handed. Not many people can say that. Sean, we'll talk to you in just a second, but welcome. Also along with Sean is Mr. Randy Chang. Randy's also a multi-award-winning PGA professional, including the 2010 and 2020 Southern California PGA Teacher of the Year, as well as the 2002 Teacher of the Year in the Aloha section. Randy is a member of the California Teaching and Coaching Hall of Fame and currently teaches at the Journey at Pechanga in Temecula, as well as his new indoor golf lab in Laguna Niguel here in Orange County. Randy has also served on the board of directors for the SCPGA for many years and has served as the chairman of our teaching and coaching committee. Randy is also the co-chair of the California Teaching and Coaching Summit, along with Sean, one of our premier events on our calendar every year. Randy, thanks for joining us, and Sean as well. Randy, can you start by maybe giving us a little bit of history on the California Teaching and Coaching Summit?
Yeah, thanks, Nikki, and excited to be on first time on this California Nevada chat. We started the California Summit about 2017 when Jamie Mulligan came to our committee with this vision of bringing what we were going to every 2 years at National in Florida, and wondering why can't we have something like that out in the West Coast. It was long haul to get out there. Those summits were really well presented, and we learned a lot. So Jamie, that was his vision on doing so. So once he got the approval of the section, came to the committee, and we started going to work. So the first one was again in 2017 at Virginia Country Club. This is kind of the program. Can people see me, Nick, or no? Okay. So we started the first one in 2017 with likes of Sean Foley, Mark Blackburn, Jamie Mulligan as well. And it was, even though it was some extreme heat, it was very educational, and we definitely enjoyed that whole process. It was a little different than the National, as we kind of mixed it around. In the National, you're inside, indoors, the whole 2 days, the whole 8 hours or whatever it is. We decided to do something where you could get out of your seat, go outdoors, see some actual demonstrations on the driving range or putting green. So it turned out to be a huge hit. The next year, Sean Cox stepped up and wanted to host it at his place. And we started doing this kind of one-up thing for every single year. It started to get even better and better and better. So Sean had it at his place in Del Mar at the Grand. That was in 2018. And again, he had a surprise guest. He surprised us all. Phil Mickelson was our keynote speaker, and it was fantastic. So then it came to my place, a Journey at Pechanga. And again, we are, trying to one up each other, try to make it better and better and better. And I think we did that as well. Created this, the book, which again, as I showed you, this is what it started with as kind of our program. And with the help and vision of Bill Hulbert, we decided to do something bigger and better. I had some inspiration with, if everyone's familiar with the Golfer's Journal, which is kind of very, a high-end magazine publication, that I had some visions of doing something like that, which adding articles from all of our teachers of the years, past teachers of the years, our teaching committee, to write articles that will help our teachers and coaches just become better, because that's basically the mission of our committee. So with that, heads to where we're going back to Sean's place at the Grand, that program became what we see here today as what we call the book. Now, everyone that comes to this summit leaves home with something in your hand of which you can refer to. It's got everything from best practices for the golf swing, to business practices, to mental practices, to equipment, and so on. So that's kind of how we started at Journey Pachanga, as well as starting a band. And that was probably the highlight of the summit at Journey. And we're going to try to have that again coming in my place next year. So that's how it kind of came about. This is our eighth, going on our eighth, and it's going back to Sean's place. And he was gracious enough to, again, host it on his way out to Northern, where you guys stole him. But he's still, in his heart, I know he's a SoCal guy. So I'm going to turn it over to Sean to kind of go over the actual program, our keynote speaker that we're very excited about, and kind of go through our schedule of events. So Sean, it's all yours.
Thank you, Randy. So in thinking about the summits and the feedback over the years, some of the biggest comments we've had is PGA professionals want to take home something that they can use when they get home in their own lessons. And we all teach different things. There's short game coaches, there's long game coaches, there's mental coaches, we have fitness professionals. And so one of the biggest goals is obviously to kind of, in all these summits, is try to touch on many different subjects. And one of the other things that I've been a part of is gaining friendships with people that are on these committees that the PGA has. And the teaching committee spends many hours, focusing on junior summits and events, and the coaching summit, the amount of hours that Randy and Jamie have put into this over the years, not including the staff at the PGA and all the hard work they do to support this event. I wanted to try something a little bit different this year and bring in some co-presenters that are part of our Southern California PGA teaching committee. So I'm going to go through the list of presenters, but in each presentation, it always helps to have somebody that's asking questions, somebody that is maybe paying a little bit more attention to the audience when there is a question that they can call out and get a question from the audience and have it be interactive. And so each presentation that we have has a co-presenter, and they're all members of the teaching committee of the Southern Cal PGA. We're going to be at the Grand. It's going to be a very similar kind of format to last time, that we're going to have a check-in outside the ballroom, going to have breakfast, and then we're going to go into the ballroom. We're going to have a presentation from TaylorMade, and they are now the primary sponsor for the event, and we want to thank them for their sponsorship and coming on board this year. And we're going to have a presentation from and welcome and thank David Abeleys, the CEO of TaylorMade. I want to say that Steve Hendren has been a big part. He's the general manager of TaylorMade of beginning this partnership for this event. And then after that brief presentation, our guest today that we'll speak to in a little bit, Andy and Piers, me and My Golf, they're going to be presenting, and Tasha Bowling is going to be the co-presenter asking them questions. And purpose with Andy and Piers is to learn, how did they grow their brand to where they're at today? How do you grow a social media presence? How do you get engagement? What does that take? How do you go from two guys with a dream to now living in Southern California as two of the biggest instructors in the world? After that, I'm going to be doing a presentation interviewing former NFL coach Norv Turner. We're going to talk about coaching and building teams and identifying talent, and maybe some fun stories about being a coach for 40 years in the NFL. And Nikki's excited because he was a Dallas Cowboys coach when they won a couple Super Bowls. And then we're going to have lunch, and mixed in is going to be sponsor presentations and Hall of Fame inductions and stuff like that. But right now, if you kind of look at short game and you're paying attention on the internet, there's a couple people that are obviously pretty hot right now. And one of them is a gentleman named Parker McLaughlin, who played golf at UCLA. His handle is Short Game Chef. And he's going to do a presentation And Jordan Thomas is going to help with that. And the goal is to actually do live lessons, whether we bring amateur students or we bring somebody from the audience, but we're going to be out at a short game area and he's going to give some instruction and we're going to ask him questions. And, you know, from working with amateurs to working with tour professionals, he's had an incredible last few years in growing his brand. And then the last presenter on the first day will be the founder of Stack and Tilt, Andy Plummer. Gina Umek, who teaches at Wilshire, she'll be co-presenting with him, and that'll be a live lesson type situation on the driving range. And then finally, on the first day, we'll have a kind of a cocktail party up at the Clubhouse Grill. Chris Patala, PGA professional, play some music, and we'll call it an evening. And then on day 2, we'll have breakfast. And he's been at some of the summits the last couple of years, but Todd Sones is one of the best putting and short game instructors with Strixon, XEO. He's going to actually, Randy Chang is going to work with him, and he's actually going to fit a couple people for putters on our putting green. And he's actually going to build the putters right there on the spot. And so we'll learn how to fit people. He's obviously got an incredible system on, you know, measuring people for the right length of putter. I would probably guess 80 to 90% of people playing golf don't have the right length putter. And I've seen him talk about this and fit people, and it's something that we should all have in our toolbox. After that, we have coming in from the East Coast, we have Trillium Rose. She's a top 50 instructor. I saw Andy shake his head. They have a relationship with her. She spent some time out at TPI. Heidi Richardson is going to co-present with her, and it's going to be a range session where they're out on the driving range, giving some help to some students and talking through what she does with full swing lessons. We're going to have lunch. And then in the afternoon, through my years at the Grand, and we hosted some PXG stuff, and Gabriel Herstead used to be sponsored by them. We formed a relationship. He kind of pops back and forth from Southern California. I know he does some coaching up at Sherwood Country Club, but Gabriel Herstead is a former tour winner. He actually won on the PGA Tour, and he's one of the best short game instructors out there. He actually has a couple training aid products, and he actually has his own wedge brand called the Surgeon. And then we'll have a break. And then, you know, one of my career goals, I have never had the opportunity to witness in Southern California, Butch Harmon. And he is nice enough. Obviously, his brother Billy Harmon has spoken for us before and is a member of our section in Southern California. But Butch is going to come out and he's going to present. And the gentleman that has put in all the hard work over the years for our book, behind the scenes, if you don't know, is Bill Holbert. And Bill Holbert is excited to do kind of more of an interview, fireside chat with Butch. And, you know, get your questions ready for him, but there's no gentleman that has a bigger history of working with the best players in the world. Probably has coached 10 to 15 #1 players in the world, which is nobody's even come close to doing. And so that's our lineup, and I couldn't be more excited about it.
That's awesome, Sean. I just want to take this opportunity to thank both you and Randy. But you've had so much influence on lining up these great speakers, and we just can't thank you enough. And to headline with Butch is going to be amazing. And to bring, you know, we're super excited to bring TaylorMade on board. I know they're very excited. They've done a lot of work at the Grand, and there's a lot of these speakers and companies that we have that they have relationships with. So it promises to be another great 2 days. Again, October 14th and 15th at the Grand. We will start opening registration here in the next couple of weeks. So look for that in both sections. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Sean and Randy, to introduce Andy and Piers. And let's hear from these two gentlemen.
So I'll kick it off. So I think Andy and Pierce, I probably met you about what, 5 or 6 years ago, somewhere in that range. Yeah, somewhere in that range. And obviously, you know, at that point, you guys had already started to grow your brand, but I'd really like to start with just you guys talking about how you guys formed your relationship, how you became partners, because, you know, in our industry, I can't name too many people that are basically a brand of two gentlemen that probably spend a lot of time together, and how that started, and just tell us about the two of you and how that came together.
Yes, like I'll go, Andy. I'll go on this one. I mean, again, first of all, can I just say thank you so much for this, and to be associated with this event for us is again, is just, you know, you could call it a dream come true, but it is, because it's to be associated with these coaches and to do what we do, and we all love coaching, we all love learning, we all love sharing. I think it's going to be a fantastic event. I can't thank you enough for inviting us. It's going to be great. As far as myself and Andy, so we actually played junior golf together. I'll give you this as quick as I can. We played junior golf together. We were the guys, when you go to the PGA training and you're doing your levels like we do in the UK, once a year you go to your main classroom and they say, right, who wants to be a player? And there's 100 trainees in the room, and 98 of those trainees in the room all put their hand up when they want to be a player. Me and Andy never did that. We always wanted to be coaching. You know, we always wanted to be, we call it changing lives through golf now. And we always had this passion to do this. I think the experiences we had when we were being coached really helped us. So from that moment, we had lots of friends who played golf. They all wanted to play. We wanted to coach. So we knew really early on that we wanted to be coaches. And we always spoke about this. And eventually in 2006, we set up an academy called the Three Hammers. We had a 5-year plan. We did really well with it. And we got to a point where kind of 4.5 years into it, we were going, we've been really happy with what we've done, but it didn't quite feel right. We felt we were leaving a little bit on the table. There was more people to help, and we were actually just seeing, you guys and girls, you all know this as coaches, we see a lot of the same problems, and we go, well, maybe we can do a little bit of content on this. We were into the fitness industry a lot as well, and looking at YouTube, and we heard Mark Crossfield was actually making money doing videos on YouTube, and thought, oh, okay, this sounds interesting. So we started doing that, and then the plan was, fast forward it, we then left our academy, went traveling around the world for 3 months. You know, started San Diego. The moment we stepped foot on the soil in San Diego from Chicago, I think we knew within 10 minutes we wanted to live here. So that was 10 years ago in 2012. And from that moment on, we've just done everything we can to grow a brand which is designed just to help people get better at golf. And that is all we're really interested in. We've meandered into different directions as we've done it potentially. But it's always been for us to actually think about the person watching the content. How are we actually going to change their lives? How are we going to improve this golfer? And it's been, I don't know how much we're going to talk about it when it comes to the presentation that we do, but it's been a wild ride. It really has. Some of the things that we've done, we every now and then we'll be there, we'll be sitting there, we'll be on shoot with somebody, and we'll look at each other and going, what the heck is going on right now? You know, you're pinching yourselves and going, this is just, it's just phenomenal. And so we're very blessed to be doing what we do. And hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea on how it all started. There's plenty more questions to be asked on that for sure, but yeah.
And you're kind of referring to, I think, some of like the stuff you've gotten to do with TaylorMade, where you're asking Rory McIlroy how to get out of a bunker. And I mean, some of that is the best content in the world, because you're getting to interview the best players in history, not just currently.
Crazy. Yeah, I mean, yeah, those moments are phenomenal. That was probably the one that we look back at, the first shoot we did with Rory, and it's just us and Rory and a couple of the guys from TaylorMade, and we're on the 5th tee at the Bears Club, I think it was, and I'm literally looking at Andy, this is Rory McIlroy. What are we doing here? So it was really cool.
That's cool. Randy, you want to ask some questions?
Yeah. The one question is, and I didn't know this, but when I was watching last week's tournament and Aaron Rai, what is relations? What is that? Haven't seen your guys' hat that he wore the whole time over there.
I'll take that over. And again, thank you guys for involving us. Really excited about the event. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because a lot of people say, Aaron Rai is wearing your hat. You can see that you're sponsoring him. But we've known Aaron since he was 4 years old. As a young kid, he used to come down the driving range where I used to work, and then me and Pierce had the academy. And we saw very early on with Aaron, this guy had something very special. It was just very apparent in him and where he wanted to go. And then when he was around 11 years old, me and Pierce had just started the academy in Wolverhampton together, and we said, Aaron, look, we'd love to work with you and see if we can help support you to help you become, the best golfer you can be, because we could see that he was dedicated, and we knew that it was his dream to be a professional golfer. So since he was 11 to now he's 29, so 18 years. The last 18 years we've coached Aaron and seen him go from a little boy to a man, but also a journey from the sort of mini tour, the Euro Pro Tour, to the Challenge Tour, winning 3 times in a year, progressing to the European Tour, obviously now the DP World, winning twice on there, and then to get his card through a few Corn Ferry events straight onto the PGA Tour to see and to be a part of his journey now to where I think he's 53rd in the world now, has been just amazing for us to be part of that, to test us as coaches. And I think we've been very lucky to have Aaron as a student to challenge us as coaches and to see how we can help support him to be one of the best players in the world. So that's been just fascinating for us and be incredible to be a part of that with him. But to see him grow from a young boy with a dream, and to see him, I was watching the golf the weekend with him, and to watch him compete with the best players in the world and be in the last group now is even though it's not surprising, it's still pretty special to watch, because we're so evolved emotionally and been a big part of that journey, really. So that's been incredible, and it's no doubt for us that he's going to do something great in this game. And for us to have a small input in that and impact is, as coaches, it's incredible, really.
And I want to say the character of Aaron, we've all, worked at facilities where professionals come ask if they can practice for a day or 2 or a week or something like that. And I had the good fortune of meeting many tour professionals in my years at the Grant. And Aaron was the most respectful and most, thankful, and you could tell how appreciative he was. And this is at a point where he wasn't a European, Challenge Tour player. This is when he earned his PGA Tour card and was moving up the rankings in the world. And then spending the time with the junior golfers. And to me, that's a credit to you and Piers on how you've helped create the person that he is, and the way you guys were respectful as well of him not being a member. It just shows what a great person Aaron is.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. The timing couldn't be perfect, and I hope we maybe get a surprise on to see what he's doing during that time. But again, I followed you folks and what you have done online, and it has spurred on. That's something that I think is going to be really important for all of us, because that's just part of where we are from the teaching and coaching side, and how you folks develop that material. I as well have gone into this indoor setting, which I thought, well, I probably never do, and getting all into the technology as well. So really going to be excited about listening to what you folks have did and how you folks have grown that audience. So
yeah, and maybe if you guys could share kind of who your sponsorships are with and how long you've been with some of those companies and how those came about, just kind of as a prelude here.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting actually when we think about that. But I mean, suppose so the main sponsors and brand ambassador roles that we have will be TaylorMade and Adidas have now been 10 years. So it's our 10th year with TaylorMade and Adidas. I can remember, I'll tell you a quick story on this. We started the YouTube channel. We got about 10,000 subscribers, which we thought we were the best thing in the world and everyone should be listening to us. And we were obviously confident in what we were doing, but we went to a TaylorMade meeting and I'm going, right, we had this presentation all decked out and we were there selling ourselves. We're like, yeah, this is gonna be brilliant. They're gonna do this. They're gonna do this. And then we walked out of it with a driver and a 6-iron, I think it was, in a bag. And it was like, oh, that isn't what we were expecting. But I think what it was for us, it allowed us to show them who we were, and we got to know who they were as well. Because we'll always say that we have to work with great people, and the people at TaylorMade have just been fantastic, and that's why it's been 10 years, because it's a great relationship. Other than that, Audemars Piguet are a Swiss watch company. We've been with those guys for 7 years now, I think it is. Audi, the same, 7 years. Full Swing is a new relationship in the last sort of 18 months, but is going fantastic, obviously based out here in Southern California. And so we've got Club Champion. We work with Club Champion as well on some content ideas and things like that. So we've been very fortunate to work with some amazing brands over the years, and it is part of what we would want to do. And I think it's because there's so many great stories out there from products and brands and what have you. And I think that the products and brands still need help in telling those stories. And that's ultimately, we see ourselves as storytellers. And how can we create good buzz around a QI10 driver, which isn't a video which says, buy this QI10 driver, is going to make you better. So the subtleties of what we can do, that's what I suppose allowed us to be with these brands for such a long time, because we offer a different way of talking about the product than they do, basically.
Gotcha.
Not sure, Andy, you want to add anything to that?
Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah. Do you folks have like a kind of a demographics of who do you have a target audience, or what is your audience that most watches your content?
Yeah, I think we've got all the numbers. Obviously, the social media stuff's so good now that you can get all the numbers you want. I think the main audience, really, the main age group is between 25 and 55. It's sort of moved down a little bit as we get older. For some reason, the demographics moving down younger. It started off a little bit older when we started, but I think that also just shows where golf is at now, and maybe even through what happened with COVID, there's a lot more younger people getting involved in that. But I think, our demographic, really, we say it loosely, but it's the average golfer. It's the recreational golfer. And that's subjective. That could be, you could have a 5 handicap or a 2 handicap golfer who classes himself or herself as an average golfer. We want to impact people who get out there and have fun, enjoy the game, and just want to get better, really, no matter what level there are. So we don't sort of bucket ourselves into it has to be this standard or this standard. But we would say, look, this is what we do for the average golfer. But I think what we also want to cater for as well is, and which we've done a lot of, is the new people who want to get into the game. We've developed a course that takes a golfer from beginner to the golf course in 2 months. So we have this sort of a 3-course plan that just encourages people to get into it in the right way. That's very simple and easy to digest. So, the demographic is sort of broad, but at the same time, it's for anybody who really wants to get better and learn, including obviously new people into the game, really. So we want to feed as many into the game as we can and just keep them playing for as long as they can.
Didn't you say you guys had a goal? Was it 1 million or 6 million? You guys said that to me. What was your goal?
Yeah, so mission to 1 million was to get 1 million new golfers into the game within a time period, and it's still going. It just needs revamping in how we do it. And as with all of these things, you kind of figure out you have a great idea, and then you do it, and then you go, okay, this isn't working exactly as we wanted to. So what's the next version of this? So it's still going. It's doing good, but we always wanted to move at a faster pace. But yeah, ultimately, it's the best game in the world, this, isn't it? It is the best game in the world. And I'm like, why don't you play golf? If you meet someone who doesn't play golf, why don't you play golf? You don't know how good it is. So, we're always keen to get new people into the game.
Do you folks have like, you work with facilities to do anything, from the outdoor place? Do you have a facility you guys work at and actually do these either groups or in person, or everything is pretty much online content, or with what you do, like with Rory and guest clients? Do you work at a
Yeah.
specific place?
Yeah, I mean, our base is the Grand here in San Diego. Obviously, Sean. Actually, it was 10 years ago, Sean. We met you for the first time in 2014. It was we had a trip out here and met Sean then, and Sean was kind enough to let us come and film at the facility back then, and that's how that relationship started. And then built into us sort of moving out here. So yeah, at the Grand, we still coaching real people is still a big part of what we do. We love it. Like, there's nothing, I don't think we could do the online stuff alone without still having contact with real human beings. It's our learning ground. It's our testing ground. It's what we love to do. So we still coach here on a weekly basis at the Grand. And we're also in the process. We've just launched some golf schools that we're going to be doing. That's encompassing, I suppose, our philosophy around how we feel golf should be taught in our way, which is, I suppose, more of a holistic about playing the game as well, not just necessarily swinging the club. So we're excited to launch that. First one's going to be end of July, and then we've got some in September, and then we're going to plan them out through next year. So that's pretty new for us, but we're going to be excited to get people here on site for 2 days of sort of full immersion of golf swing, short game, mental strategy, on-course playing, and getting people better in person. So quite sort of small groups, 6 groups between me and Pierce, 6 people, to really make that experience really good for them. So yeah, we still love getting that one-to-one interaction and group interaction. Don't think we could do it without that, really.
Your relationship with, again, Full Swing that you just started, are you looking at doing some kind of indoor setting as well?
We haven't really discussed that. We've actually been using their facilities, which has been really handy, being as they're in when the weather's been not so great here, which is rare in Southern California. But we've actually used their facility a lot, which has been incredible, really. But nothing plans from an indoor side of things. If we're in the UK, I think we probably would have looked at that. But the fact that we've done most of the year now here in Southern California, we're like, no, we want to be outside as much as possible. So yeah, nothing in the pipeline on that.
Nikki or anybody else have any questions?
Let me see if there's any questions that came in from the audience, but thank you both. I mean, it's been great to sort of, number one, meet you for the first time. We look forward to working with you in a few months at the Grand, and I know you're going to share some wonderful insight and experiences with our golf professionals and help make them better, make them the best coaches and instructors possible. I don't see any questions that have popped in the chat. If anybody has one, please feel free. But with that, we could probably thank you both for joining us. And again, we look forward to seeing you soon. And Sean and Randy, thank you so much for joining us today and all the work that you have done up to this point for the California Teaching and Coaching Summit. And we know it's just going to be another phenomenal event, and we're looking forward to it very much. Again, October 14 and 15 at the Grand Del Mar here in San Diego, and registration will open in the next couple of weeks. And when we do open that, we're going to be sure to share that with Michael and the team up north to promote that to our friends of Northern California section, and hope to see some of you come down for this great event. But gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you for spending some of your Friday with us. You're welcome to stay on, but we appreciate your time and your friendship. Thank you. And with that, Mr. Kessler, if you are ready, we will transition to you for a legislative update. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. I see that Eric Ullman's not still with us, and that's too bad, because I was going to share with him whether or not come January 20th at noon, whether the oath of office was going to be taken by the 45th President of the United States, the 46th President of the United States, or a player to be named later. But he went off the air, so I just can't share it with him, and he'll have to call me privately for that information, and he can go on the betting lines with it. That's all I'm going to say about that subject, as you might have suspected. So I'll get back to, we operate in, in those where golf and public policy intersect, and it really doesn't intersect with the presidential election. So we're in that period of time legislatively when our legislators have gone on vacation. They come back in early August and they go back to their home districts. Many of them, if they're in the assembly, they have to run for office every 2 years. And then they see just how happy or angry their constituents are before they stand for re-election or move on to something else in life. When we were together just a short 2 weeks ago, I know literally right after this broadcast ended, we discovered that the legislature had moved a gut and amend bill 1524, which exempted food and beverage or restaurant functions and banquet functions out of the junk fee laws that was passed last year and gave it a full exemption. The following day, the governor signed it, which is a good thing because Monday was July 1st and it was set to go into effect. And I got a lot of calls from a lot of GMs and a lot of facilities and a lot of MCOs. Which menu do we go with? The one that's fully inclusive of all the prices, including gratuities and any service charges? Or do we go with the old ones where we simply put those at the bottom as additions? And of course, couldn't answer the question. But the good news, I think, for the golf industry is that all that functionality has been exempted, along with all the food and beverage. And credit goes to the original author, Bill Dodd of Napa. And I will also say the union that represents an awful lot of restaurant workers in the state, Unite Here, we've interacted with many, many times, some positive, some less than positive, also supported that. So that's a good piece of news. I got that question last time and couldn't quite answer it. Was able to answer it literally 30 minutes after this ended. We've had a good year. Golf has done very well on the legislative front, very well in Sacramento. It's done well in recent years. I could tick off all those things, but I'm not going to do it. But this year, we very effectively amended some odious provisions out of a bill that would otherwise have prohibited the use of all non-organic fertilizers and pesticides on golf resorts in California's coastal zone. If you're thinking Pebble Beach or La Costa, or if Eric Lohman's thinking of the facility where he's GM at Monarch Beach, those would have all been included. But I think more importantly than just this, somewhere between 6 and 9 facilities that would have been directly affected by the proscription, very badly affected, I might add, that would have been a very short and slippery slope to future legislation, to the degree to which, if the issue is the inappropriateness of using non-organics on golf resorts in the coastal zone, why not all golf courses in the coastal zone? So should that bill come back, it died later in the appropriations process. Should it come back, it is most likely to come back without those provisions that caused the golf community statewide to oppose it, unless those things were amended out. And I'm happy to report that the author of the bill and the sponsor of the bill were quite cooperative in amending those things out before it got out of the Natural Resources Committee. I know we were also concerned in the legislative session with a bill that would have taken us to year-round standard time, which would have had a great impact on the twilight business, particularly at this time of year. Happy to report that when that bill moved from the Senate over to the House didn't look so kindly on it, and excuse me, the Assembly. I'm confusing levels of government at this particular point. That it's now been reduced to a bill that simply asks for a study of the economic effects of year-round standard time, and that report is due back in 2027. Golf community has no objection to studying the economic impacts. We would just hope that they would include in those economic impacts the impact upon the 1,000 golf courses in the state of California. So as that first half of the year, we tackled some of those things again, sort of reactively, things that were negative. I might add that as opposed to 6 or 7 years ago, when the legislature didn't really pay a close attention to what we thought one way or the other on things, increasingly with each passing legislative session, they're paying more and more heed to what our opinions are, and particularly when we oppose something. Now, the trick is perhaps moving in the next couple of years from when they care about what we oppose to perhaps when they care a little bit more about some of those things we might propose. And I'm not going to go into it today. May go into it a little bit later as we approach the 2025 session. But I do think we've become bold enough that we will maybe try to run a bill or two dealing probably with turf in the next session along those lines, to parallel some of the things in terms of rebate programs that are already moving forward in Southern California, district by district, particularly with Los Angeles Water and Power and the huge wholesaler Metropolitan Water District. But more about that a little later. When we come back, and the final month of the session is mostly just to see whether those bills that still survive, that have moved from one house to the other house and are up for final disposition, whether they make it out of the appropriations process. And one bill in particular that we supported very strongly, and the golf industry is hardly alone in that support. It has the support of more than 100 organizations, and its sponsor is the California Municipal Utilities Association. And that is a bill that would, for the first time in the history of California, put definite targets on water supply. Targets by 2035, 2040, and 2050. Now, that may seem strange to you that something as important as water has never had a supply target in any piece of legislation or regulation in the history of the state of California. The author of the bill, Ana Caballero, state senator, actually, when she testified in favor of her bill in front of the Assembly Committee, she pointed out that there are 81 separate targets dealing with the decarbonization of our economy, of the California economy. The golf industry understands that very well. Mandates on us in terms of transferring from gas-powered equipment to electric-powered equipment. Some cases, the equipment might not work. In other cases, it may work, but it's twice as expensive as the old equipment. And there's never been any impediment. The philosophy has always been, if you don't set a target, you don't set a goal, you have no chance of reaching it. You may not reach it by the stated date of the goal, but you'll never get there if you don't do it. So it's very significant that for years there was always opposition to putting supply targets on water for two reasons. One, that's more of a mandate on the public sector because that requires infrastructure. And yes, if you're thinking the same thing that I am, that the state has never minded putting targets and mandates on the private sector, but somehow is a little reluctant on itself, you're thinking the same thing I am. In addition, I think there are some, and for good reason, some environmental groups that are always worried that when you put a target on water supply in California, that supply will come at the expense of the Sacramento Delta. Now, even though this bill, which is Senate Bill 366, to those who want to look it up, was very clear that this was not to be the case, in the end result, as it made it through the Assembly policy committees and on to appropriations, there were a number of amendments that were proposed by staff to guarantee that. Those amendments were all accepted. We're all in support of it. I'm very optimistic that it'll make it through appropriations and ultimately be signed by the governor. Just as a little bit of inside information on this very issue, when we did our Capitol Day, some 7 or 8 weeks ago in Sacramento, when a number of us from the California Alliance for Golf, traipse around the Capitol with various different meetings with legislators, we did have meetings with the governor's water policy person, and very significantly, a meeting that was scheduled for 30 minutes with the chief legislative deputy for the Department of Water Resources went close to an hour and a half, which was an indicator of their interest. And they gave us some good insights as to gave us an insight that this bill would ultimately be supported, but would also be amended. Not amended by us, but amended by the governor's office and the state Department of Water Resources and things like that, all to the good. Mention this because along with many other things, we're seeing a pivot in California. Let me state something very clearly. The golf industry has always been supportive of the idea that conservation is not only important, but it is a measure of water supply. Every drop not used is a drop that can potentially be saved, whether it's an above-ground reservoir, whether it's in an aquifer that's been replenished, whether it's in stormwater that's been captured, no matter what it is, or just simply unused or left in the ground for those parts of the state that use groundwater, particularly the desert. That is supply. But I think our position's always been clear, as important as that is to ramp up that supply, it can't be the only element of supply, or ultimately California, this fifth largest economy in the world, is going to drift to sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th. And a process that's already begun of a little bit of depopulation, mostly due to housing prices, will become some depopulation due to simple factors of the unavailability, or perhaps when available, the cost of water moving forward. So what I'm trying to explain is that there's a shift on a number of counts. The stock of golf in our capital keeps continuing to rise. I think this audience remembers, I think, what I would call the success we had with the independent contracting issue. You may not recollect as well the success we had on moving golf very specifically into that category of water use that is not frivolous, but is recreational and is amenable to the use of potable water thereon. Because I hope everyone understands, in this state, it's no longer permissible to use potable water on non-functional turf. So putting golf very specifically into the language of the state codes, and which has been copied and pasted into local codes, so writ large throughout this big state, those things were important. I think everyone probably remembers the various different iterations of what we call the Public Golf Endangerment Acts that would have added a lot of free money to chop up the state's municipal golf stock, which is about a little over 22% of it, particularly those facilities in which the industry, and I'm talking to a PGA section where you've done junior league and all those laudable programs to grow and diversify the game, those were the facilities that would be most, I think, in danger. So I add, moving on from that, we've had success this year, ultimately unable to use fertilizers or pesticides on golf courses in California's coastal zone, would have gutted the resort market, probably would have been more devastating, might have been arguably more devastating to the fullness of the golf industry in the state of California than I think the Public Golf Endangerment Acts, which were a little bit more focused. So whatever the issue may be, let me suggest that our stock is going up and we're doing better. My hope, my fear, is that will instill a measure of complacency. If we're doing this well, why do we need to listen to those who indicate that we need to ramp up and put more investments in it? Let me just say, as the person who's probably been most at the center of all these efforts, I can tell you how close we came to losing some of these things. Losing both the Public Golf Endangerment Acts and perhaps even losing on the issue of the use of pesticides in the coastal zone. In addition, and sometimes luck plays a role, and so forth. And increasingly, I can see that, 7 or 8 years ago, when I got asked, well, you must spend a lot of time in Sacramento, my answer was no. But now that answer is changing. More and more challenges, I think, are going to continue to come golf's way. And I hope that out of this success, we see something that works and can be ramped up and be made even more effective, because it's going to have to be made more effective. I'm going to close with something that's a little bit off the wall, but I think it's important to emphasize. This came out yesterday in a very long update from the Southern California Golf Association. And to those who received and actually read it, I apologize for being a little bit repetitive, but the title of it was "The Initiative That You Won't See on Your November Ballot," and the significance of the fact that you won't see it. And it's an initiative that has nothing to do with golf. It has to do with the oil and gas industry, which spent more money lobbying in 2023 than any other sector, many, many millions of dollars, and didn't have a very good year, didn't have nearly as good a year as golf. When you look at the efficiency of the spend, that's really an amazing juxtaposition or a comparison. but they spent about 25 million of their precious dollars qualifying an initiative for the ballot in November, and they got the signatures ready to go. That would have reversed some legislation that requires them, that denies them the ability to sink wells within 3,200 feet of certain kinds of things like schools and churches and other things. I don't know the entire list. They withdrew it because they spent some millions more on polling and discovered that it wasn't going to pass. And they were prepared to spend probably $100 million to get it passed, and realized no matter how much money they spent, they were probably not going to win this and would all be wasted. So they're going to try a few other approaches. They're a bottomless pit of money in a way that golf certainly isn't. My point is this: we have to understand the same thing that they understand. It's not, it's about public opinion. So every time I preach, and I'm not the only one who preaches, that the key thing for us, more important than dealing with all these bills and all these numbers I just went through and all these technical regulation, is there's 90% of the population does not play golf. Almost 100% uses gas, so it's gasoline. So it should be a compelling argument when the oil and gas industry says, if you do A, B, or C, you're going to be spending 30, 40, 50 cents more per gallon at the pump. That affects 100% of Californians. What doesn't affect 100% of Californians is the fate of the golf course in their community. It affects roughly 10%. So the important thing for us, and the lesson in the oil and gas industry, it's what the public thinks of you. If they drive by, if the 90% who don't play golf drive by that golf course and think, I'm happy it's in the community if I never touch a golf club, because it's green space, it's good for the environment, it's good for charitable contribution, it's good for community activities, it's good for schools, it's good for junior programs, it's good for the society and the neighborhood in which I live in, and it's good for property values. That's the key to success. If the oil and gas industry can't have its way with the kind of economic impact they have, they not only produce a lot of multiplier economic benefits, but they're the one industry that provides probably more good paying industrial jobs than any other single industry in California. And they pay a lot of taxes in this state. And they provide a commodity that almost everyone buys on a continuous basis. And when the price of that goes up, we all become a little crabby. So keep in mind, when we go to spend our precious resources, let's spend them on all those things that I mentioned before, on community values, on recreation, on youth, on schools, on environment, on permeable surfaces, all those kinds of things that go to the benefit, and not waste our money on an economic study, which really shows how small we are. And here's the dirty, and increasingly it's come to the attention of many, then we don't pay taxes on it either, and so forth. So let us focus our efforts. Maybe as someone who's been responsible for getting results on all those numbers I cited. You know, you got to be a real policy wonk to know one set of numbers from the next when it comes to bills, whether it's A, B, and SB and all that sort of nonsense. But at the end of the day, to get those results, it's what people think of you, what the opinion is of you. And that's the thing to focus on. And I always emphasize that to this audience, because the impression of golf, you hit more golfers than I do every day. And whether it's giving lessons, whether it's behind a counter, whether it's talking to members, and particularly if you work in the public sector, whether it's dealing with the general public, and you go out into the public, whether it's Chamber of Commerce meetings and other things, because you're trying to drum up business for the golf course, the impression you give will go a long way to how a policy wonk like me can do on dealing with all these bills and all these kinds of things. So that's the lesson of the initiative that you won't see. Hundreds of millions of dollars make no difference there. We barely have hundreds of dollars. I'm looking at Nikki smile. It's not quite that bad to deal with this. So we have to deal in other realms and other ways to get good results. And with that, right at 11 o'clock, on time, I'm going to step off my soapbox and stop preaching that last message. Thanks for having me. And if you'll have me again in August, I'll come back.
Greg, of course, we're going to have you in August. So thank you again for the update. to your point, the 26 things a PGA professional is all about, the most important one's right at the bottom, and it's a friend. So to your point, thank you again for all your informative updates. Thank you to Andy and Piers, Sean and Randy for coming on and updating us about the California Teaching Summit coming up in October. As a reminder, the next chat will be August 9th. So please look for that. We will have another great set of lineups. And of course, Craig will be on. Nikki, do you have anything else to add?
Just thanks, everybody. And thank you, Michael. Thanks to all our guests, and enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on August 9th.
Thanks, guys.